هذا هدى والذين كفروا بآيات ربهم لهم عذاب من رجز أليم.
This Quran is the true guidance. Those who deny the signs of their Lord shall suffer the torment of a woeful scourge.
الله الذي سخر لكم البحر لتجري الفلك فيه بأمره ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون.
Allah it is who has subjected the sea to you, so that ships may sail upon it at His bidding, and you may seek of His bounty, and give thanks to Him.
13. For explanation, see Surah Bani Israel, ayat 66-67, Surah Arum, ayat 46 and the corresponding E.ns, and EN 55 of Surah Luqman, EN 110 of Surah Al-Mu'min, and EN 54 of Surah Ashura. 14. Seek His bounty, seek lawful provisions by trade, fishing, diving, navigation and other means in the sea.
وَسَخَّرَ لَكُم مَّا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِّنْهُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ.
He has subjected to you all that is in the heavens and the earth, all being from Him. Verily, there are signs in this for those who reflect.
15. For explanation, see Surah Ibrahim, ayat 32 and EN 44 on it, and EN 35 of Surah Luqman. 16. This sentence has two meanings. 1. This gift and favor of Allah is not like the gift of the worldly kings, who favor their favorites with the wealth that they have collected from the people themselves, but, on the contrary, all the good things in the universe have been created by Allah Himself, and He has granted these to man from Himself. 2. Neither is anyone a partner of Allah in the creation of these good things, nor has anyone anything to do in making them subservient to man. Allah alone is their creator, and He alone has granted these to man from Himself. 17. That is, in their subjection and in making them beneficial for man, there are many signs for those who think and reflect. These signs clearly point to the truth that the Creator and Master and Administrator of everything and of every power in the universe, from the earth to the heavens, is one God alone who has subjected them to a law. And that God alone is Lord of man, who has made all these things and powers favorable and helpful for man's life, his sustenance, his convenience, his development, and his civilization and social life by His power and wisdom and mercy. And that God alone is worthy of man's service and gratitude and devotion, and not some other beings, who have either any share in creating the things and powers, nor anything to do with subjecting them to man and making them beneficial for him.
All being from Him. This has two meanings. First, that the bounties which God bestows on humans is unlike the bounties bestowed by kings and rulers of the world. The latter's bounties in any case consist of their granting the wealth which they have wrested from their own subjects to a few chosen persons. On the other hand, the bounties that God grants to His creatures were all created by Him. None has had any share in either creating these bounties, nor in harnessing them to man's use. God alone is their Creator, and He alone has granted them to man on His behalf.
قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يَغْفِرُوا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ أَيَّامَ اللَّهِ لِيَجْزِيَ قَوْمًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ.
O Prophet, tell the believers to indulge those who have no fear of any evil days coming upon them from Allah, so that Allah may Himself requite them for their deeds.
18. Literally, who do not accept the days of Allah. But in Arabic usage on such occasions, ayam does not merely mean days but those memorable days in which important historical events may have taken place. For example, the word ayam al-Arab is used for the important events of the history of the Arabs and the major battles of the Arab tribes, which the later generations remember for centuries. Here, Allah implies the evil days of a nation when the wrath of Allah may descend on it and ruin it in consequence of its misdeeds. That is, those who do not fear the coming of evil days from Allah, i.e., those who do not fear that a day will come when they will be called to account for their actions and deeds, and this same fearlessness has made them bold and stubborn in acts of wickedness. 19. The commentators have given two meanings of this verse, and the words of the verse admit of both. 1. That the believers should pardon the excesses of this wicked group so that Allah may reward them for their patience and forbearance and nobility from Himself, and recompense them for the persecutions they have suffered for His sake. 2. That the believers should pardon these people so that Allah may Himself punish them for their persecutions of them. Some other commentators have regarded this verse as repealed. They say that this command was applicable only till the Muslims had not been permitted to fight. Then, when they were permitted to fight, this command became abrogated. But a careful study of the words of the verse shows that the claim about abrogation is not correct. The word pardon is never used in the sense that when a person is not able to retaliate upon another for the latter's excesses, he should pardon him, but on such an occasion the usual words are patience and forbearance. Instead of them, when the word pardon has been used here, it by itself gives the meaning that the believers, in spite of their ability for retaliation, should refrain from retaliating upon the people for their excesses, whom fearlessness of God has made to transgress all limits of morality and humanity. This command does not contradict those verses in which the Muslims have been permitted to fight. Permission to fight pertains to the condition when the Muslim government has a reasonable ground for taking military action against an unbelieving people. And the command concerning forgiveness and pardon pertains to the common conditions in which the believers have to live in contact with a people who are fearless of God and have to suffer persecutions by them in different ways. The object of this command is that the Muslims should keep their moral superiority and should not stoop to the level of the morally inferior people by indulging in disputes and wrangling with them and resort to retaliation for every frivolity. As long as it is possible to respond to an accusation or objection gently and rationally, or to defend oneself against an excess, one should not refrain from this. But when things seem to be crossing these limits, one should hold his peace and entrust the matter to Allah. If the Muslims themselves become involved in a fight or quarrel with them, Allah will leave them alone to deal with them. But if they pardon and forbear, Allah will Himself deal with the wicked people and reward the oppressed ones for their patience.
من عمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن أساء فعليها ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون.
Whoever acts righteously does so to his own good, and whoever commits an evil will suffer its consequence. All of you will then be sent back to your Lord.
وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحُكْمَ وَالنُّبُوَّةَ ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على العالمين.
Indeed, we endowed the children of Israel with the book and wisdom and prophethood, and provided them with good things as sustenance, and exalted them above the peoples of the whole world.
20. Hukm, judgment, implies three things. 1. Knowledge and understanding of the book and religion. 2. Wisdom to act according to the intention of the book. 3. Capability to give right decisions in disputes. 21. It does not mean that they were given preference over all the people of the world forever. Rather, it means Allah had chosen the children of Israel from among all the contemporary nations of the world for the service that they should hold fast to the divine book and should rise as the standard bearers of God worship in the world.
وآتيناهم بينات من الأمر فما اختلفوا إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم إن إن ربك يقضي بينهم يوم القيامة فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون.
We gave them clear directions in matters pertaining to religion, yet they differed among themselves, not out of ignorance, but after knowledge had come to them. And they did so out of the desire to commit excesses against one another. On the day of resurrection, Allah will judge among them regarding what they had differed.
22. For explanation, see Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 213, Surah Al-Imran, Ayat 19, and E.Ns 22-23 of Ashura.
ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون.
And then we set you, O Prophet, on a clear, high road in religious matters. So follow that, and do not follow the desires of those who do not know.
23. It means, the mission that had been entrusted to the children of Israel before you has now been entrusted to you. They, in spite of receiving knowledge, created such differences in religion out of selfish motives and stirred up such divisions among themselves that they became disqualified to call the people to God's way. Now you have been set upon the clear pathway of religion so that you may perform the service which the children of Israel have failed to perform and became disqualified to perform it. For further explanation, see Ashura, Ayats 13-15 and E.Ns 20-26.
إنهم لن يغنوا عنك من الله شيئا وإن الظالمين بعضهم أولياء بعض والله ولي المتقين.
Surely, they will be of no avail to you against Allah. Indeed, the wrongdoers are friends of each other, whereas Allah is the friend of the God-fearing.
24. That is, if you make any changes in Allah's religion only to please them, they will not be able to save you from Allah's accountability and punishment.
Surely, they will be of no avail to you against Allah. That is, if you make any changes in God's religion merely to please these people, they will not be able to save you from accountability before and chastisement of God.
هذا بصائر للناس وهدى ورحمة لقوم يوقنون.
These are the lights of discernment for people, and guidance, and mercy for those endowed with sure faith.
25. That is, this book and this Sharia present such a light for all the people of the world, which distinguishes the truth from falsehood, but only such people receive any guidance from it who believe in its truth. For them only it is a mercy.
أم حسب الذين اجترحوا السيئات أن نجعلهم كالذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات سواء محياهم ومماتهم ساء ما يحكمون.
Do the evildoers imagine that we shall make them equal to those who believe and do good, making their lives and deaths alike? How vile is their judgment!
26. After the invitation to Tawhid, the discourse now turns to the theme of the hereafter. 27. This is the moral reasoning for the truth of the hereafter. The difference of good and evil in morals and of goodness and wickedness in deeds necessarily demands that the good and the evil people should not meet with one and the same end, but the good should be rewarded for their good, and the wicked punished for their evil deeds. Otherwise, if the good and the evil end up similarly, the distinction of virtue and vice and morals becomes meaningless and God becomes unjust. The people who follow evil ways in the world do want that there should be no accountability, and no rewards and punishments, for this concept goes against their enjoyment of life. But it is against the justice and wisdom of the Lord of the worlds that he should treat the good and the evil alike, and should not care to see how the righteous believer has lived his life in the world and how the sinful unbeliever has been enjoying it. One of them kept himself subjected to moral restrictions all his life, rendered the rights of those to whom they were due, restrained himself from the unlawful benefits and pleasures, and continued to incur losses for the sake of the truth. The other fulfilled his desires in every possible way, either recognized the rights of God nor hesitated from violating the rights of the people, but went on collecting benefits and good things of life in every possible way. Can it be expected of God that He would overlook the difference between the lives of the two kinds of men? If the end of both be the same, no greater injustice could be conceived. For further explanation, see Surah Yunus, Ayat 4, Surah Hud, Ayat 106, Surah An-Nahl, Ayats 38-39, Surah Al-Hajj, Yen 9, Surah An-Naml, Yen 86, Surah Arum, Ayat 7-8, Surah Su'ad, Ayat 28, and Yen 30 on it.
وَخَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ.
Allah created the heavens and the earth in truth, that each person may be requited for his deeds. They shall not be wronged.
28. That is, Allah has not created the earth and the heavens for mere sport, but it is a wise system with a purpose. In this system it is absolutely unimaginable that the people who may have accomplished good deeds by the right use of the powers and means and resources granted by Allah, and the people who may have spread mischief and wickedness by their wrong use, should end up ultimately in the dust after death, and there should be no life hereafter in which their good and bad deeds should lead to good or bad results according to justice. If this were so, this universe would be the plaything of a thoughtless being, and not a purposeful system devised by a wise being. For further explanation, see Surah Al-An'am, 73, Surah Yunus, Ayats 5-6, Surah Ibrahim, Ayat 19, Surah An-Nahl, Ayat 3, Surah Al-Ankabut, Ayat 44 and E.Ns 75, 76, Surah Arum, Ayat 8 and Yen 6 on it. 29. In this context the sentence clearly means, if the good people are not rewarded for their goodness, and the wicked are not punished for their wickedness, and the grievances of the oppressed are not redressed, it would be injustice. There cannot be such an injustice in the kingdom of God. Likewise, there cannot also be the other kind of injustice that a good man be given a lesser reward than what is due to him, or a bad man be given a greater punishment than what he deserves.
أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَٰهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فمن يهديه من بعد الله أفلا تذكرون.
Did you ever consider the case of him who took his desire as his God, and then Allah caused him to go astray despite knowledge, and sealed his hearing and his heart, and cast a veil over his sight? Who after Allah can direct him to the right way? Will you not take heed?
30. Desire his God implies that one should become a slave of his lusts and desires. He should do whatever he likes whether God has forbidden it, and should not do what he dislikes, whether God has made it obligatory. When a man starts obeying somebody like this, it means that his deity is not God but the one whom he is obeying without question, no matter whether he calls him his Lord, with the tongue, or not, and carves out an image of him and worship him or not. For when he has worshipped him directly without question, it is enough to make him a deity, and after this practical shirk one cannot be absolved from the guilt of shirk only because he did not call the object of his worship as his deity with the tongue, nor prostrated himself before it. The major commentators also have given the same commentary of this verse. Ibn Jarir says, "The forbidden things by Allah are forbidden. He does not regard the things made lawful by him as lawful." Abu Bakr al-Jassas gives this meaning: he obeys his desires as one should obey his God. Zamakhshari explains it, thus, he is obedient. to the desires of his self. He follows his self wherever it beckons him, as if he serves him as one should serve his God. For further explanation, see Yen 56 of Surah Al-Furqan, Yen 63 of Surah Saba, Yen 53 of Surah Yasin, and Yen 38 of Surah Ashura. 31. The words Adala Hulawala Ilm and Mayadamin, the person in spite of being knowledgeable was driven astray by Allah, for he had become a slave of his desires, or Allah, by virtue of his knowledge that he had made his desires as his God, drove him astray. 32. For the commentary of letting a person go astray and setting a seal upon his heart and ears and a covering on his eyes, see Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 7-18, Surah Al-An'am, Ayat 25 and Yen 28, Surah Al-Araf, Ayat 100, Surah At-Tawbah, Ayats 87-93, Surah Yunus, Ayat 74 and Yen 73, Surah Al-Arad, Ayat 27, Surah Ibrahim, Ayats 4-27, Surah An-Nahl, Ayat 108, Surah Bani Israel, Ayat 46, Surah Arum, Ayat 59, Surah Fatir, Ayat 8 and E.Ns 16, 17, and Yen 54 of Surah Al-Mu'minun. 33. From the context in which this verse occurs, it becomes obvious that only those people deny the hereafter, who want to serve their desires and who regard belief in the hereafter as an obstacle to their freedom. Then, once they have denied the hereafter, their servitude of the self goes on increasing, and they go on wandering further into deviation. They commit every kind of evil without feeling any qualms. They do not hesitate to usurp the rights of others. They cannot be expected to restrain themselves when there is an opportunity for them to commit an excess or injustice only because of a regard for justice and truth in their hearts. The events and incidents that can serve as a warning for a man are witnessed by them too, but they draw the wrong conclusion that whatever they are doing is right and they should do the same. No word of advice moves them. No argument, which can stop a man from evil, appeals to them, but they go on devising and furnishing more and more arguments to justify their unbridled freedom, and their minds remain day and night engaged only in devising ways and means of fulfilling their own interests and desires in every possible way instead of engaging in a good thought. This is an express proof of the fact that the denial of the hereafter is destructive for human morals. The only thing that can restrain man within the bounds of humanity is the feeling that man is not irresponsible but has to render an account of his deeds before God. Being devoid of this feeling, even if a person is highly learned, he cannot help adopting an attitude and behavior worse than that of the animals.